So the last issue of Absolute Superman gave us a lot of information at the very end. In terms of the flashbacks, we got to see just how close Krypton was to its actual destruction, and in the present, we see that Lois Lane, who we've just been introduced to, works for Lazarus, and she's currently trying to apprehend Superman. We also got introduced to Brainiac, so we've got all these open threads, and now we're gonna see where this all leads us in Absolute Superman number 2. Now we start with yet another flashback where Kal seems to be getting chewed out for doing things his own way in class. And we've already seen based on how things work on Krypton that this is not okay. I just want to point out that when it came to Absolute Superman number 1, we saw that he spoke very low. I thought it was just because he was trying to be inconspicuous, but we see here even on Krypton as a child he still spoke very low, so I'm wondering if this is just something he does. But we end up going back into the present where we see Lois still trying to apprehend Superman. Now funny enough, he is not paying attention to her. He's trying to figure out what is on his wrist. Now these are cuffs, but obviously he doesn't really know that, so he's calling them chuffs, which I find hilarious. He's trying to find a way to get them off, but he is currently weakened and vulnerable, and he simply can't do it. But he doesn't want to rip off Lois's arm either. Now as she keeps trying to tell him to get on his knees, since he won't listen, she does blast him in the face. Now even in his weakened state, this doesn't really do anything, and his AI system in the suit is letting him know they'll deal with the cuffs. As we see it slither up Lois's arm, I still don't know what the hell's going on with the suit, it is very weird. As he asks the suit not to hurt Lois, it responds by telling him it is not the one he should be worried about, as we see he's completely surrounded. Now while Superman is literally saying nothing, we see the soldiers are incredibly corrupt, telling him to stop, surrender, and some of them are even saying, what? Is he saying he'll hurt her? And he's not saying anything, they're just looking for a reason to blast him, and blast him is exactly what they do. They light his ass up. Now again, this doesn't do much, but he is still weakened and vulnerable. He cannot do this forever. Now the suit is having a hard time getting these cuffs off, because every time they try to sever them, the metal simply reforms. It's very difficult to get Superman free, which is when we see the suit release this dust in the form of a cape. So it looks like his cape is a combination of Kryptonian dust, and he's able to use this cape to escape and protect Lois, because as they're blasting him, they're almost gonna blast her too. And she is still trying to get his attention, trying to get him to get on his knees and surrender, but he's barely paying attention to her. So she shoots him in the face again, another thing that still doesn't do any real damage. But he tells her, stop doing that, you're making it very difficult to save your life. So he does fly away with Lois, instructing the suit to make sure the dust does not rip her in half. Now this makes me wonder, how powerful would this Superman be without the suit? He is a very strange combination of his own raw power and Kryptonian tech. Like I covered Absolute Wonder Woman number 2, and I said it does seem like this version of Wonder Woman is stronger than our original. But this version of Superman, at least so far, seems to be weaker than our original. But again, he is weak and vulnerable, so we'll see what happens when he's fully charged. Now I had to look at this panel like 50,000 times because I could not believe my eyes. Is that a helicopter tank? Whatever you would call it, this is what they're using to chase Superman as he flies in the air trying to save Lois. And again, we see just how corrupt the Peacemakers are, because they're using everything they can to blow Superman out of the sky, despite the fact that Lois is with him. They don't care. And I was very confused last issue when I said I wasn't really sure if the introduction of Brainiac was the fact that he works with Lazarus, or that he simply broke in. He just didn't really seem like he was formally there. But not only do they make it clear that he's working with Lazarus, he seems to be giving them different ways to take out Superman without killing him. So they blast him with some chem rounds, and he uses the cape to block the blast, but it does still send them plummeting into the ground. Once again, Superman saves Lois' life. But what did she do to thank him for this? She blasts him in the face again. She is very persistent. I would love to see how this relationship actually develops. The fact that it's starting off so rough, I will be so surprised if she actually does still fall for Superman, because clearly saving her life is not enough to get on her good side. Now as they gather their bearings and Superman gets up after getting shot in the face once again, they have a bit of an argument. Superman calls her out for working for Lazarus, and we've already seen how horrible they treat normal people. And Lois is constantly trying to pry into who or what he is. The conversation gets Superman a bit pissed off, and he sees that Lois is a bit of a bitch, and he really doesn't like her. But in this argument, he does reveal that he's not from this planet, and the suit tries to tell him, stop talking. Now this conversation is interrupted by Lazarus as they continue to attack him, but this time they're doing it around civilians. This proceeds to piss off Superman even more, as he tells him, these people are not your playthings. He lifts up a car and throws it at the helitank, knocking it right into the building where the people are. Now without skipping a beat, Superman goes right into the wreckage and he lets Lois know that she will be shielded from the damage and the burning with the sunstone dust that's surrounding the both of them. but she doesn't even care. She tells him to just go. So it does look like this Lois Lane is not fully heartless. They both know they need to save these people. Where she says, "My first thought was that it had to be the suit, but while the subject's advanced battlesuit does display otherworldly properties, possibly including some level of sentience, after direct observation, this agent can say with profound certainty it isn't the suit." And we see that the suit has actually burnt off from the damage, and he is still very powerful, smacking away the rocks, blocking all of the fire, and protecting everyone that's in the wreckage. As Lois says, this Superman is plenty super all on his own. The full extent of the subject's powers remain uncharted. It is my impression that even he does not fully understand the limits of his abilities. Pretty similar to how Superman was when he was pretty young. We still don't know just how powerful Superman is. And she continues, as if this is all relatively new to him as well. In some ways, Superman is very much still a boy who hasn't yet fully deciphered who he is. In other ways, he is every bit a man, with an ethos that seems unshakable. I love the way she's speaking about this Superman. It adds a lot of epicness to the scene as he's saving everybody and he has them all cradled in his sunstone cape. This is very cool. Now, as Lois continues to be Superman's #1 hype man, we see a few abilities on display. Not only does this sunstone cape protect people, stretch, and is incredibly durable, it can also treat wounds, as we see it heal some of the humans and it even heals some of his wounds as well. There is no way he keeps this suit. It is so powerful, and he's also powerful himself. He is a boss, especially once he finally gets fully charged. With how powerful his own abilities are and the versatility of the suit, this Superman would be a problem for anybody. Especially when you think about the fact that during all of this, he is weakened. This was an amazing display of power and heroism, and Lois finally realizes she does not stand a chance as she holsters her weapon and finally stops trying to attack him. She can finally see Superman for who he really is. Now, with his unshakable morality and his strong will, she realizes he will be too difficult to coerce. She's requesting to have a full-on Superman assignment. She wants to continue to study him. And since she is formally requesting this, I can see this is probably how Lois spends more time with Superman and starts to like him. Especially when we see that she puts in her private notes that he smelled really good. Now, as everything starts to wind down and Superman and everyone else's wounds are taken care of, his suit reforms around him and he finally stands up and they start to have an actual conversation. But they're interrupted when the cuffs are finally released after all this time. And the minute they open, he flies off without saying a word. Now we go back to Lois as she continues to write her report about the day, and it turns out, although they are working with Brainiac, he seems to be pretending to be an automated system, although we see him behind the desk talking to Lois. He asks her how dangerous Superman is, and as she tries to tell him he's not dangerous at all, he ranks him as an 8 out of 10. He asks her if Superman can be controlled. As she says no, he jots down that he needs to be terminated. And as he continues not to listen to Lois, she ends up punching the computer, and this is where we understand that Brainiac is pretending to be an automated system, although he clearly has his own motives. So this is honestly something I just didn't see coming. At first I thought he broke in, and that he was just inside Lazarus, and then as I continued to read, I thought, okay, so maybe he's the boss of Lazarus, but as she's writing her report, and we see that she calls him an automated system, but we see he's very functional, and he's just pretending to be one. Now I'm just like, what the hell's going on with Brainiac? And who is the boss of Lazarus if they just see him as some automated system? And more importantly, what is his beef with Superman? It first came off as a curiosity until we see that he's cooking the books to get Superman killed, so he clearly has an actual legitimate beef with Superman. Now it's made pretty clear that the version of Lois we saw when she first ran into Superman is gone. This experience with him has completely changed her, and she does not want to use the automated system, Brainiac, to write this report. She needs to do it herself. She needs to get her thoughts down accurately. And as she does that, we have yet another flashback of Kid Superman on Krypton. As Kal is playing with Krypto, we see his parents building what looks to be a prototype of the suit we saw him wearing in the present. I'm so interested to see what exactly this orange energy is. It may be sunstone energy, but there is a sentience to the suit, and I'm trying to figure out who is in that suit. What level of sentience does it actually have? Now we also see his parents talking about what could be the worst case scenario. If they can't get the leaders of the planet to understand that Krypton is set to be destroyed, then they have to try and steal as much sunstone energy as possible and build their own ship to contain all of their loved ones and get out of there. As we see Kal continuing to play with Krypto, oblivious to what's about to come. Now the issue does end on a pretty dark note as we see the Peacemakers talking about what happened between them and Superman. If you guys remember, he easily destroyed all of them and it made them feel powerless. Not only that, but because the citizens were being protected by him, they feel like the citizens are being ungrateful. They don't seem to understand that peace has its price. And as the peacemakers start to rile themselves up even more, they start to lie to themselves, acting like the people may know exactly where Superman is. But of course they don't. Superman is gone. And with all these mixed up emotions of being angry that they got destroyed by Superman and hateful towards the civilians they constantly mistreat, we see him take it all out on the civilians and he shoots everybody. This was insane. Now we don't see if he actually hits them, but it looks like he may have just killed a bunch of innocent people. The battle against Superman may have turned the peacemakers even more brutal than they already were. And if I had to guess, with this added brutality against the normal civilians, this may be the reason Lois Lane switches sides. Maybe this is how she breaks away from Lazarus. Who knows? But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I loved this issue, and I will catch you guys on the next one.